Thank you for staying with us. I'm Cheryl. I'm here with Fari, and we are just going to practically talk about some of the points that we just heard. I think going to another land, I think, Fari, you can relate to that, right? Growing
I sure
up?
can. Yeah, growing up, we had to move around a little bit. Even like in our own country in Iran, we moved around a lot. Went through war, so I experienced that. And then, moving to Denmark and then here. So been through quite a few of different cultures, languages, and experiences.
So going to school, do you have any idea how many different schools you went to?
No, I can't remember. It's that many.
Really? So you would know what it's like to step into that new scenario, going to a new place.
Yeah, that's it. It's difficult. It's hard because you have to get used to kind of the culture that you're getting thrown into, especially as a child when it wasn't really your decision, but you just show up and you're like, okay, I gotta learn what to do here, and so, but yeah, even going from where my culture and my religion, and then moving into becoming Christian, so going from being Muslim to Christian. That was a big move as well, and kind of coming to that place of, okay, how do I live? What is acceptable? What is right? What is good? What is wrong? All those things I had to wrap my mind around it. But really, the church, that's where the church is for, is the community where we learn.
You make a really good point, because we can, maybe not everybody, although we do have a lot of us that have moved from one country to another and have had to make that transition, or even moving within your own country, moving even within Canada. There's different cultures in different provinces, have different cultures. There's some changes in there, and for you to be able to say, you know what, coming to become a believer, to becoming a Christian, even if we grew up in Canada, there is this, because you're coming into a new family. It's a family of God, and there are some, like you said, like what culturally, but what are the kind of the dynamics of this family? Because Dave mentioned when he first brought me to the farm, there was a different dynamic, because I'd never lived on a farm. I'd only lived in the city, for example. So there was even dynamics between farm living and city living. For him to come from farm living to city living, I think there was even more stories on that. Yes. We could talk a lot about that one. Wow. There was a few things that, I think, but in that, to be in the family of God, you just have to know, if we just went culturally from where, Dave, where you came from on the farm to be living in downtown Vancouver, only a redeemed person in love for Jesus would make that kind of transition. And I think when we recognize that we've made that, we've been redeemed. Every exchange we make with money or ATM card right now or a credit card, we're redeeming. We're using something to redeem what we want. And Jesus paid the ultimate price for everything we have. He says, everything you need for life and godliness, he redeemed. It wasn't a credit card. It was his entire life. It was his precious blood. And on the other side of that, we got everything.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? And to recognize that when you come into the church, when you come into the family of God, all of us are bringing some kind of mess, right? So when you step in, there's something that has taken place in your life, or even your own sins or whatever, but you're bringing mess, and you know that God can make something beautiful out of your life. And so we see that with what happened, obviously, with Naomi and Ruth, and I'm excited about that, because if you're here today, you're like, man, I don't have a Christian background, I don't know the Christian culture. That's okay, because I started in the same place, and most of us here, probably didn't grow up in a Christian home, and so we have to get to know what it's like to belong in the family of God and in His kingdom.
Which is what Ruth had to do, really following her mother-in-law, Naomi. What she saw in Naomi was her faith in God. That was what was so attractive to her. It was like, I want to be associated. By faith, because Hebrews chapter 11, and again, last week we talked about kind of the hall of faith, which is chapter 11 of Hebrews, she's mentioned in there, or Rahab is mentioned in there, which is Boaz's mom. Man, when you hear the story of what Rahab went as, you know, she was a harlot in this city that, you know, in Jericho, or Jericho? Jericho, right? She was this harlot there, and she outright lied. Like, I mean, it was like, man, I know how to lie well. I'm going to lie to preserve the men of God. But she did that even by faith. Talk about a mess. And how she's like, even in that place, her faith, her heart was at a place where it's like, I want to trust God. And yet her character was still living the only way she knew how to live.
Now people are thinking, can I lie by faith?
No.
Is that okay?
No, let me clarify. Let me clarify.
There are different examples.
She was living a life. That was her lifestyle.
But the thing is, though, like that's a whole nother story. But because
correct.
Yeah,
help me, Fari. No. Bring this story.
This is a good thought,
bring it
though.
Around. Like let's come back around here on this one.
But no, and God rewarded her for protecting.
Yeah.
And really, even the spies that were there, spies by nature, lie. They don't give up their identity, right? So anyway, there's a whole lot of things we could say about that, but don't lie. But again, in this case, we see that it was okay.
Whoopsie.
So,
it's like, Pastor Cheryl.
So God can make a message out of your mess. And one thing that stood out to me when Pastor Dave mentioned that there are two things that need to be true for this promise to apply when we talk about Romans 8:28, that God, He works all things together for the good of those who love God and those who are called according to His purpose.
Right.
Those two things are huge. So some people might be like, well, great, God works all things together. I don't really need Him or a relationship with Him. He just makes it work out. No. These are the qualifiers. Is you need to love God and be called according to His purpose and not live according to your own purpose. So,
right.
And we see this obviously come through in Ruth's life, where she committed herself to Yahweh.
Yeah, and going back to the illustration of the umbrella, she, even Ruth, I am going into that place. I want to be under that covering. And that's what Boaz saw in her as well. And again, you can just see his heart of compassion, which, again, as Redeemer, Jesus has such a heart of compassion on us. He doesn't see us the way we see us. He sees so much more, and I'm so happy for that. Thank you for staying with us. God bless you. Don't lie.
Love you guys.